So I had a new house, a new marriage, and a new $500,000 debt with the business, and it overwhelmed me. What not to do, and any opportunity you have, learn off somebody else's dime. And that, everything in business is important.
Today, I'm sitting down with someone who has helped shape the greater Nashville landscape for over 30 years. Gary Wisniewski started Landmark Homes in 1991 and grew it into one of the most respected home building brands in Tennessee, known for its integrity, precision, and customer-first focus. From building his first home by hand, he's developed over 4,000 residential lots and generated over $70 million in revenue. Gary built more than a business, he's built a legacy. In 2024, he has sold his company, Landmark Homes, to Century Communities, one of the largest national home building companies, and now leads the development of over 1,000 lots in the Middle Tennessee area. Today, we're talking about what it really takes to build in real estate, the mindset that keeps you going over decades, and what it really means to build something that lasts. I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Super excited to start and dig in. So, Gary, tell us, how did you grow up and how has that shaped who you are today?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, into a family that was self-employed since 1932. So in the household was a matter of if you live here and eat here, you work here. So I was working with my dad and grandfather from the age of 5. It was a great experience. Absolutely loved it. It was a fundraising business. We also had a novelty and toy store. So a little kid working in the toy store was just absolutely perfect. I learned from my dad and my grandfather how to deal with people, how to sell, how to treat customers, how to put together schedules, how to run logistics, all these things that I didn't learn through books. It was through watching. It was through being mentored in the business. It shaped who I was throughout my career to the point that while I was still working there, I formed other businesses. At the age of 22, I bought a Snap-on tool franchise. I had an auto parts business. And at the age of, I bought the Snap-on tool franchise when I was 20. At 22, I got married and my first son was born. And for the first time in my life, I had debt. So I had a new house, a new marriage, and a new $500,000 debt with the business, and it overwhelmed me. It taught me a lot, but it overwhelmed me. So after a little while, I sold the franchise and went back and worked with my dad, tripled the size of his business, went to dad and said, hey, I hope we're building this for us, and you'll pass it on to me as your dad did to you. And he said no. And I said, well, then I guess I got to go.
What do you think was the reason that he said no?
My dad and I were wired very different. My dad was a phenomenal communicator. He was a great salesman. He hated debt, and he also hated risk. I was very risk averse, still am. So the business we were in throughout my career from a young man, there were probably 8 competitors. Throughout the years when I left, we bought out all but one. So I wanted to be part of that buyout so I could actually put something into the business and grow it together. And that scared Dad to death because of my aggressive nature. He didn't want to ride that train with me, which is fine because he did well, I did well, and us not working together was probably more beneficial than working together.
What did he say later when he saw you building more of an empire yourself?
To me, nothing. To others, a whole lot. So it's kind of one of those parents that, never let your kid know he's doing well, but he's doing well, tell everybody else. But it was fine.
Awesome. Yeah. What was one of these early memories that you can think of working in your dad's shop that's really shaped how you approach things later?
Oh, this sticks out in my mind with when my grandfather was still alive. So we had our showroom and store was downstairs, and there was a basement, also an attic, and we had a conveyor that went up to the attic. And in order to save money, whatever came in, a lot of our business was import goods. So a lot of things that came in cardboard cartons, we would open them up, display the items, but we'd never throw the cardboard cartons out. because we'd reuse them, so we didn't have to buy packaging.
True.
And there was an area above the attic to where you would put all of these cartons for later on. I remember the one day going into that area, and all of a sudden I heard all these expletives, probably more than I've heard on a construction site, and boxes just flying everywhere.
Wow.
And my grandfather was back there just having an absolute fit. And at that point, I learned how to fold boxes inside of each other so they could fit together, and learned a very important lesson that, everything in business is important. It's not just a box. If we have to buy it, it takes out from the profit and the overhead, which reduces our paychecks. So pay attention, boy. And there you go.
That's a very valuable lesson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so.
So how did you get into real estate?
As I stated earlier, I bought my first house when I was 20, and it was it wasn't a fixer-upper. It was fine, but it was a small house in the suburb of Buffalo. It was 800 square feet, aluminum sided, little quarter-acre lot with a detached garage. It needed some loving care, some new paint, new tile, what have you, but it had an unfinished basement. And up north, everybody has a basement. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to remodel the basement into a big rec room and bar room. Back then, there were no computers, so everything was done with books. I had a bunch of friends that were in the trades, so I would meet with them after work and go over electrical layouts, plumbing layouts, HVAC layouts, how to hang sheetrock, how to do trim work, etc. And I would go back home and do it, and they'd come over the next day or two and inspect the work, make sure it was right. And then I finished the project. So I had a lot of fun doing that. Really enjoyed that part of the business, the building part of it. And then when we decided to move, we put the house on the market in January in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. There was literally 8 feet of snow on the ground because it was Buffalo. I had to take a snowblower and blow a path around the house so people could actually come look at it. Put it on the market myself, did a little research and cleaned the house up, put on some soft music. Baked cookies, all the things that you tell your realtors to do when they're in your models. And I ended up with 6 offers on the house in one day. And I bought the house at 42 grand, put about 10 grand in it, and sold it for 82 3 years later.
Awesome. And
I said, boy, this real estate stuff is cool. So when I moved down to Tennessee to move my wife closer to my in-laws, I wanted to get into the building trades and the home building business. Mm-hmm. And that's what started.
That's awesome. Quite the story. And you moved to be closer to your wife's family.
My wife hates change. Still does. Always will. It's not good for her. Every time that we've moved to a new house, she's been extremely upset with me. Until we're there about 3-4 months, she realizes it was a good move. So I knew that if we were going to move 800 miles away from where she grew up, I better find her a soft landing. So moving close to my in-laws was that landing that she could have comfort being around her mom, her dad, her brother, or sister. And this way I would have the opportunity to do what I wanted to do without having to worry that she was upset.
Good. So back in 89, you were here in the South, and you broke out on your first home here.
Yes.
Right? So what story were you trying to tell, like yourself, in terms of, yourself, your vision, and your values when you first started?
So here's where my training came from. My grandfather taught me a lesson years ago when he said, every day is a learning day. Some days you're going to learn what to do. Some days you're going to learn what not to do. And any opportunity you have, learn off somebody else's dime. So when I moved to Tennessee, I just worked odd jobs to get some money coming in, and then found a job as a trim carpenter with it wasn't a national builder, but a large regional out of Texas. The gentleman that owned it, his name was Ken Loki. I went to work for Ken as a trim carpenter, and then he needed help in customer service. I jumped into customer service and excelled because of my business experience and ability to handle customers, and realized what an absolute crappy home he built. Oh my God, it was terrible. And it wasn't him. I mean, the company wasn't organized well. And while I worked for him, I watched people stealing from him every day. I watched his realtors, his supervisors, everybody was stealing from him. It was absolutely terrible. How he stayed in business, I had no idea. So all of a sudden one day, I'm getting up 5 o'clock in the morning, grabbing some coffee, getting ready to go downtown Nashville to get some permits and such that morning. And my phone rings at the house. Once again, I'm kind of old before cell phones. So the phone rang, picked it up off the wall. And the gentleman said, "Hi, is this Gary?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is Ken Loki." I said, "Okay." And he says, "You've never met me?" I said, "Correct." And he said, "But you work for me." I said, "Yeah, I've seen your name on my paycheck." He said, "I need to meet with you this morning." And I said, "I won't be able to do that because I'm going downtown to pull permits. I've got a schedule. Can we meet in the afternoon?" He said, "Well, I understand, but you do work for me." I said, "Yes, I do understand, but I'm not going to lie to my supervisor. Let me call him and tell him I'll be meeting with you." And he said, "No, he doesn't know I'm in town." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Can you make this work?" I said, "Yeah, I'll call him and tell him I'm going downtown to get the permits, and I'll carve out some time to come meet with you." So I did. And we met at the Sheridan Music City on Elm Hill Pike. And he was already eating breakfast. I sat down and we had pleasantries. And he said, "What do you think of my company?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what you're asking me. I mean, do you want me to tell you it's a wonderful company? You're a great man. You're fantastic. Do you want me to tell you what I think about the quality of the homes, the construction of the homes? What do you want me to tell you?"
That's a big question.
And he said, "Well, just what's the first thing that comes to your mind?" I said, "Okay, first thing's a question. How are you still in business?" And he went pure white and he didn't look very happy. And he said, "Why the hell would you ask me a question like that?" I said, "How long have you been in Nashville?" He said, 5 years. I said, "Have you made a dime since you've been here?" He said, "No." I said, "Have you been in the black since?" "No, we've been in the red every year." I said, "Here's my question. How are you still in business?" And he said, "I got to go." And he looked back at me as he was leaving and he goes, "Once again, why would you say that?" I said, "Everybody that works you is stealing from you. You can't possibly be making a profit." And he left. I didn't see him again.
You told him that to his face, and he has.
Oh yeah, he turned white and he left. So
wow. Did you ever hear from him ever again?
oh, absolutely. So I figured, he'd be calling to tell me it's my last day, and so I went about my day. And a day later, his sales broker came up to me and says, "What the heck did you say to Ken?" I said, "Well, I told him the truth." So 2 days later, he called me and says, "When I left you, I went up to my room and got physically ill." And he said, "I left town immediately." And I said, "Okay." He said, and then I came back 2 days later without anybody knowing and rode around to my projects. And he said, "And you're right." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll be back in town next week to fire everybody. Will you take the company over?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I'm Gary, not Jesus. You need a resurrection. And I can't do it." And he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Ken, I can't tell you I can save your company." I said, "I've been in business my whole life. I can run a business. I know very little about construction. I'm not your guy." So he said, "Okay, would you be willing to go ahead and keep things afloat until I hire somebody?" I said, "Sure." So he started sending me people to interview to be my boss. And after 6 or 7, he called me and says, "How we doing?" I said, "Not good." I said, "These people are all banana heads, worse than the people he had." And he said, "Well, you're already running things." I said, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "Do you mind sticking around?" So I set some terms with him of that I would work for him 3 days a week, full time, because I wanted to build on my own. Already had my contractor's license. So that's the first home that I built by myself in Chapel Hill, Tennessee, with my hands and my knowledge of what I gained from working for him and also knowing what not to do.
Yeah.
And the first day that I took things over, I fired everybody, suppliers, subcontractors, salespeople, told them they could all come back and reapply the next day. So then I ended up, when I got home, with death threats at my house because sometimes construction world's a little rough.
Yeah.
So he hired me a security guard to walk around with me for 3 months. And in 3 months, we turned the books from red to black.
Wow.
And it wasn't by any miracle or anything amazing. It was just doing the right thing. It was pretty simple.
How old were you at the time?
26.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And I know I look old now, but back then I was 26 looking like I was about 16, which was kind of fun because I would go on job sites and somebody would say, "Is there anybody in charge around here?" And I'd go, "Well, I don't know. What are you looking for?" And it was neat because it was kind of that, that show Undercover Boss. Yeah. Nobody knew who you were, realized you had anything to say, and you learned a lot.
It can be a huge benefit to the underdog.
It was fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So your brand later became known for integrity, quality, communication and also customer first approach. What was there a moment early on when those values like became non-negotiable for you? Was it that moment with like Ken at that time, what you saw from his company, how he ran his company, that set out what you wanted to build?
Absolutely. As I said,
No.
Ken taught me a lot of what not to do.
Mhm.
So I knew that one, from doing customer service, there was no customer that was happy. And I was in their home to find out why they weren't happy. And I looked at what they had to deal with and I realized why they weren't happy. The quality of material was substandard. The quality of the installation was substandard. They were promised things looking at the contract that they never got. It was terrible. So when I started on my own, I said, look, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm going to buy the best material I can for the price point that I need to produce. I'm going to hire the best trades I can for the type product that we're building. I'm never going to lie to anybody, but I'm also going to, hold my ground that I need to make a profit here. And as long as people realize I'm going to treat them fairly and build them a quality product and then stand in back of it, yeah, I should do okay.
Those core values definitely stand out in construction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
In every single way. Yeah. So I'm just curious, the house in Chapel Hill, do you still own it?
No. I realized this was the late 80s, early 90s. So
Okay.
we were coming through the oil embargo crunch and all from Mr. Carter's days, and real estate was completely in the toilet. So it was actually a good time to start because I couldn't go I was already on the bottom. I couldn't go any further, right? So no, we built that house and I sat on it for 4 or 5 months and sold it for a reasonable profit. And then when I was completely on my own, the first house we built with a partner, she stayed with me. It was actually his broker that asked me why I got him upset. We picked up a couple contracts he left on the table when he bankrupted, and it was over by Priest Lake.
Oh.
The lady's name was Addie McAdoo, single black lady. It was a 3-2 split floor plan. I can see it like it was yesterday, and it sold for $139,500, and that was gross sales year one.
Nice.
And 38 years later, gross sales were north of 80 million.
That's impressive. So,
A little lucky, a lot of luck, a little hard work, a lot of luck.
we'll talk more about that.
Fair enough.
What did getting your hands dirty in these early days teach you that boardrooms never could?
Oh, I learned that lesson years ago when I was in business with my dad. In the fundraising business, we had a supplier out of Cleveland, Ohio by the name of Aero Industries, and they were owned by the family called the Gallaghers. They had 7 kids in the family, huge, big Catholic family. Mr. Gallagher, John, was a huge mountain of a man, super good businessman, great guy to talk to. But I went to visit them at their factory one time, and Mr. Gallagher met us kind of in the coffee room, and everybody chatted a bit, and then he was taking off his tie and his coat and told his one son he was going to do something in the factory. And I kind of looked and I'm like, back then, this was almost 45 years ago. And they were past the point of being millionaires. And I said, why's your dad? And at that point, he was probably close to 70. I said, why's he going into the plant? Says, because that's what he does. I said, meaning what? He said, Dad's got a rule that he will never ask anybody to do anything unless he's done it himself. Now, if he's physically unable. He said, let me give you an example. So we walked outside, and it was the plant they were in was old paper factory. And they had this smokestack that went up, 200 feet in the air. And their sign, Aero International, was up there. He said, Dad, help put that sign up there. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. He said, everybody said, you can't possibly put the sign up there. It won't work. So he climbed the ladder 200 feet in the middle of downtown Cleveland to show somebody that it would work.
That's commitment.
That's commitment. And, building that first house by myself with my own hands taught me the trade. It taught me what to expect. It taught me when somebody says that can't be done, I've got personal knowledge if it can or if it can't. Plus, it also taught me how hard these guys work. I mean, up on a roof in this Nashville heat, laying shingles, you have respect for those guys. In a ditch, pouring concrete as it's heating up, I got respect for those guys.
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but the thing is, you realize that, as I was building the business and building my employees, we always referred to the people that we work with as our trade partners, not subcontractors, because they weren't sub anything. They weren't less than us. We had no business without them. So because somebody did this and somebody did that, didn't make somebody better than another. We're all part of the same puzzle. So that helped to build the culture of the company that nobody's less than anybody else. In fact, the two most important trades were the painters and the cleaners. Because if that house ain't squeaky clean and all the paint lines don't work, that customer isn't happy with that house. The house could be leaning like this. They don't know that. But if it's not clean and if it's paint not done right, so, somebody that beats on the cleaner, I'll stand up for them every day for the cleaner, because they're the ones that get us over the goal line.
Yeah, I can tell a lot about someone's character, how they're treating the cleaners, the secretary.
Completely agree.
What's up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you take me back to what was your toughest build that you've ever had? What was going on and how did you carry it through?
Sure. About 3 years in, we bought a project from the RTC. This was back in the days, as I said, where there were financial issues. So the Residential Resolution Trust that was formed by the government was to liquidate projects that the government took back that were FDA backed. So we bought a project in West Nashville, right off of White Bridge Road, across from Nashville Tech, called Stoneway Close. And what it was a development that actually went up it went up Stoneway, it backed up to Nob Hill, where Channel 4's got their big tower. And you have to drive down into the project. The townhouses, and they were, let's call them today paired villas, right? Back then there were duplexes, but very expensive duplexes. So the ones on the left-hand side all had a basement going down the hill. The ones on the right-hand side went up the hill. So it was a really tough build. I mean, we bought the project for pennies because, number one, it was a foreclosure. Number two, nobody wanted it because it was a difficult project. And you'd have to pull down this hill, and you were building on a hillside here with 30-foot high basements. And on this side, you had to, get almost a Billy Goes take material up the hill. And we were pouring one foundation, and it got away. And all of a sudden, the whole basement blew out. Concrete went everywhere, stone went everywhere, block went everywhere, people went everywhere. It was a mess. That whole project was extremely difficult to build. It was coming through an area where real estate sales weren't super strong. So we had to really negotiate and build over the top to get somebody in there. But I learned a lot.
So that was 1994, 1995.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I learned a lot about finance. The guy that sold it to us, the realtor that was in the transaction, then the next year sued me, claiming he was part owner of the project. So that got me introduced to the court system.
Nice.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, here I am, 28, 29 years old, served my first lawsuit, realizing if it works in his favor, I lose everything.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. The lawyer that handled it for me is actually still an attorney here in town today, Tom Botsdorf. Tom did a great job. And I remember the one meeting with him, and I said, Tom, how often does this happen in the real estate building business? And he chuckled. He says, how big of a business do you want to build? And I says, I'm not sure why.
Good question.
He said, look at it this way. If you build one home and you put this real estate sign in the front yard, the sign is about 2 by 3, right? He said, now picture yourself with a bunch of kids driving down the road, rolling the window down, throwing a beer bottle at that sign. It's going to be hard to hit. He says, now, let's say you build a big company and your little sign goes to a billboard. He said, those same kids can hit that billboard every time. He said, here's what I'm telling you. The bigger the billboard, the more people are going to throw stuff at it. I'm like,
that's a really good analogy.
Thanks, appreciate it.
It's a really good analogy.
Yeah. So I'm not smart enough to stop, so I just kept.
Yeah. I actually, in the early years, did a renovation on Knob Road.
Did you?
Yeah, I
Okay.
actually did. And it was also a larger one.
Yeah.
And we also did have a basement.
Yeah. I mean, a great area.
It was
Just, a little difficult, especially if it's a tight site, but that's
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. The slopes are just a lot to work with.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think separated you from the hundreds of other home builders who never made it this far as you did?
We give a damn all the way on through. We care about our customer. We cared about our trade partners. We cared about our suppliers. We cared about our reputation. We cared about delivering a good product.
Mhm.
I can drive through neighborhoods today that I developed 30 plus years ago, and some of the people still live there 30 years later.
Wow.
And I can still stop in and talk to them, and they'll invite me in for something to eat or drink and just tell me how happy they are that that house helped help build their family. So, it proved to me that doing the right thing will prevail. Also, during the nasty downturn we had from 2000, they say 2008, but it started really in the end of 6, lasted through 2012. We were one of the very few builders that never bankrupted. And it was because of the integrity that we built. And the banks we were with, at least most of them, supported us because they knew that we were going to fight through it. We weren't going to hang anybody out to dry.
Mm.
And quick story, I was pulling a permit. Well, one, you had to be innovative. And so we had townhouses we were building in Murfreesboro. And it was a luxury townhouse that was more expensive than anything ever built in Murfreesboro for a townhouse.
What was the price at the time?
Back then, 500-ish.
Okay.
When the average townhouse was 89.9.
Yeah, that was substantial.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm brilliant. So we were going to build these luxury townhomes, and to me, it made sense because it was on the north end of Murfreesboro, where most larger properties are, and there were neighborhoods that were already 30 years old where people were living on an acre in a 4,000-foot house looking to downsize. So as soon as we got the model out of the ground and one inventory out of the ground, that's when 2008 hit. So here we are eating this brand new project for a while. So
how long did you sit on it?
We sold the last ones. Well, the last one was sold to me because that's where I live right now while I'm remodeling my house. I don't know, 4 years ago. So it was 20 years worth of. Now the project did fine. Financially, it did fine. It turned out well. It's still a project that no matter who's on the city council or planning commission talks about because it's done well. But in order to be innovative, I had a contract from somebody that wanted to buy one. The problem was they were townhouses that were either in 2s, 3s, and 4s. I couldn't build one. So I went to the codes department and said, hey, I need you guys to let me build one. I said, well, how do you propose to do this? So I had an engineer design the footing that was kind of a shiplap type footing. And then on that outside, which was supposed to be masonry, we did hardy. So I could literally, when I built the next one, strip the hardy off, pour the next foundation, overlapped onto this one, seam it together, and basically build a fourplex one at a time. And they supported me in it, and that's how we got through the project. But the year I went to do that, I walked in, and the director of codes ended up being a friend of mine. We sat down for a bit because he had nothing to do. There were no permits being pulled, and the whole staff had nothing to do. And he said, I want to applaud you. And I said, why is that? He said, before the downturn, do you know how many builders we had in Murfreesboro that were actually licensed? He said, because there's plenty of unlicensed. And he said that we're pulling permits. And I said, no. He said, 325. I said, okay. He said, do you realize how many of you guys are still pulling permits today? I said, no. He said, 3.
Wow.
He says, you're one of 3 out of 350 or 325.
That's
He said, so I applaud you. And one, thanks for giving us something to do because we got nothing to do. So.
It sounds like, the relationships that you've formed throughout those years.
Absolutely.
Just also
Yeah.
what's still kept helping you along the way. And you mentioned earlier also the communication with your banker.
Sure.
Never stop communicating even when the tough.
The thing I learned from my dad and my grandfather is that you don't have to be right all the time, and you don't have to kowtow to everybody all the time. Just stand your ground, if you're right and you believe you're right. So I do have a reputation in the industry of being hard-headed and not getting along with people.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that have said that are because they didn't like the way I was standing my ground. So planning commissions, councils, bankers, I've never done anything malicious. I've never tried to do anything that wasn't kosher or against code. But I wasn't going to cower down either. I mean, if right was right, it was right. And I did the same for my customers. I mean, we would have a warranty claim on something that was out of warranty, a couple of years old. And my VP construction, my warranty guy would say, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, simple question. Is the problem happening because we didn't do it right?" And they said, "Well, yes." So, well, then go fix it. Well, it's out of warranty. Okay. Let's go back to step one.
Yeah.
Did we do it right? No. Well, we got to go back and do it right.
Yeah.
This is really simple.
That's what people remember. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Now, if we did it right, then, their kid, punched holes in the wall. Not my problem.
Yeah.
But if my guy punched holes in the wall, that's my problem.
It creates word of mouth as well.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially in the greater Nashville area. You've built essentially down to Murfreesboro. Do you want to kind of give an idea of like the radius that
so we predominantly worked in Rutherford, Wilson, Williamson, and Davidson County. We would sometimes go a little further out, but that was kind of our playground. And we always had enough business in that playground that it didn't make sense to really go any further because then we'd have to really stretch management or add management.
Yeah.
And we were in always a steady growth pattern, but we never had ambitions of doubling or tripling the size of the company in a short period. We always believed in growing in a long term, and the business was set up to be a long-term company, not a short, investment and collecting it out.
Yeah. Healthy growth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rather than being the one-hit wonder.
Yeah,
Business
it was funny. I was sitting at home yesterday and flipping through some YouTube stuff because I just needed to clear my mind. And there was a little YouTube that came on about songs in the 70s that were one-hit wonders. Realize you know nothing about that type of stuff. But you might recognize some of the songs. But what was interesting watching that is looking at these bands that just ramped up and had a couple of good songs, but didn't seem to understand what they were doing, didn't understand that entertainment was for the long haul. It wasn't about collecting royalties off of one song.
Right.
And to your point, never built a company to be a flash in the pan or a, overnight success. Realize that all the companies I've seen that were successful grew over time, not overnight.
You mentioned in the very, very beginning that part of it was that you got lucky. But the more I listened to you talking and describing your story, there was quite a method to really building also wealth sustainably over time. So I
had a method to my luck. Cool.
So for you, what does it actually mean to build well? If you had to sum it up for someone that's really wanting to get started as a general contractor, as a developer, how would you sum that up? What does it mean to you to build well?
Invest your time to really understand what you're doing and do it right. The Bible tells us that, if you don't have a strong foundation, you're not going to be able to build anything on it. So realizing that you need to understand what you're doing from the ground up, you need to understand, of course, you'll never know everything, which is fine, which is actually great because we're all learning every day. But you really need to understand what you're doing. You also need to understand, if you're going to make it in this business, that it is a business, right? It's no different than the guy that opens a restaurant. He can cook phenomenal food, but if he doesn't have his cost control, he's going to go bankrupt. And everybody's going to go to the next restaurant because he's not there anymore. So you've got to weigh that you've got to weigh that difference between, or the variables between who do you want to be, what product do you want to deliver, what's the market rate of that product, and then how do you go ahead and develop that product and stay profitable. I've seen some really great homes being built by builders that never made it because they didn't understand it's actually a business. You got to make some money. And then I've seen homes built that are still being built today that I go, oh my God, it's going to fall down any day, because they really understand the finance part, but they don't understand anything about quality construction, customer satisfaction, etc. So, the thing that's fun with the business is it's multifaceted, and you wear a lot of different hats, which is fun. And over the years, you find out which hat fits the best. And then you give the other hats away to people that need to wear those hats. But you're involved in construction, you're involved in finance, you're involved in government relations, you're involved in customer service, you're involved in HR, you're involved in payroll, accounts receivable, purchasing, estimating. And those are, for somebody that doesn't like being stuck in a box, it was a great business because it gave me the opportunity to do a lot of different things and wear a lot of different hats, and then kind of take off the ones that didn't fit well and wear the ones that did.
In the beginning, you compared it to running a restaurant. I thought it was interesting because as a home builder, you also want people to come back and spread the word, especially when you are in suburban neighborhoods.
Right.
It spreads pretty quickly whether the builder is putting out great product or not.
You're right. The difficult thing in the home building business is that if you go to a great restaurant, you may go back there twice a week. You may go back there every other week. You'll a few times a month, but you're going to be a recurring customer. Buying and selling homes, you don't have that recurring customer with that customer. But I was taught years ago by a salesman that used to sell to my dad. We went out to lunch one day, super smart salesman, super smart individual besides a good salesman. And he said, Gary, have you ever heard of the rule of tens? And I said, no. He says, if I gave you a pen right now, can you take that napkin and write down 10 people you're going to talk to today? I said, sure. He said, go ahead and do it. So I did. He said, great. He said, do you think those 10 people know 10 people? Do you think those 10 people know 10 people? He said, if you do somebody right, within a week, there's probably 100 people that know that you did it right. He said, if you did it wrong, there's probably 200 to 500 that know you did it wrong. He said, it all multiplies. So regardless that, this home was maybe a purchase somebody's going to make every 5 years, every 10 years, they're going to talk to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And those people will either accept you or reject you based upon their referral from somebody else. So, rule of tens.
That's powerful.
Right?
That's really great advice. So when Century communities came calling to buy your business, you already had built a respected global legacy. How did you decide that you were ready to pass on the torch?
Oh, goodness. It started back in the early 90s when I wanted to learn more about the business and what I was doing. So I joined the local association, the Nashville Homebuilders, and then started going to the IBS, the International Building Show, which was the industry's big show every year. It was either in Vegas or Orlando every year. So I started going every other year, one, to get more knowledge about the industry, learn about new products, make some new connections, but also they had a lot of great seminars. And in the year 2000, I went to a seminar about public building companies. And it was kind of scary because in the year 2000, they said the projection for 2020, well, let's back up. In 2000, the public home builders were building 15% of the market, 1-5. And the projection was that by the year 2020, they would be building 30% of the market. So double. In the year 2023, the nationals and public companies were building 56% of the market. And in Nashville, 58% of the market. The projection today is that the national home builders, the publicly traded companies, by the year 2030, will be building over 90% of all homes being built. So watching this from remembering that talk in the year 2000, I kept watching the trend and seeing there was a shift happening and realizing that the competition was going to get a lot tougher.
Mhm.
I then went to International Building Show, and I believe it was 2018.
Mhm.
And there was a seminar about category killers and also disruptors. So the first question they asked is, who's the largest taxi cab company in the world? And it's Uber and Lyft.
Right.
Guess what? They don't own any cars. Who's the largest hotelier in the world? Airbnb, VRBO. They don't own any real estate.
Mhm.
And who's the biggest retailer in the world? Amazon. They don't own any product.
Mhm.
Completely disrupted those industries. So then they showed a picture up on the screen, and it was interesting. It was showing a home being built in the year 1900 and a home being built in the year 2018. There was one difference: nail guns. That was it.
Wow.
So us builders are so smart. The best thing we could do in 100 years was come up with a nail gun. So the talk was about, we're not here to scare you. We're just telling you there's a shift coming, and our industry is primed for it. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know how it's going to be. We don't know when it's going to be. Keep on your toes. And as I kept watching this trend with the public companies, it made me curious and a little anxious. So then it's 2025. So in 2018, I joined an organization in Nashville called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which is where I met you.
Yes.
And I joined because I wanted to be around other crazy people called entrepreneurs that nobody understands. And I went to a seminar put on by EO and Alliance Bernstein about selling your business, how to do it correctly. And when I went to that seminar, it was really great people. They had, let's call them the amateurs from EO that had sold their businesses, and some did it right, some didn't, talked about troubles, issues, what have you. And then there were a group of professionals. So M&A advisors, M&A finance people, M&A accountants, an M&A attorney, and an M&A psychologist, talking about how to properly set your company up to sell. And so I took a bunch of notes and said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'll do it right. And then 2 years later, out of the blue, we get a call from a company down in Bentonville, Arkansas, home of Walmart. It's Roush Coleman. And at that point, they were a family-owned company that just broke $1 billion in sales.
Wow.
And John Roush called me and says, Gary, I never met you. I got some friends in Nashville. We've always wanted to build in Nashville. I can't seem to get there. Can we talk? So he came to town and said, have you ever thought of selling or merging with another company? And I said, no, not really. This is being built for a family company, and my son's going to take it over. But I'll keep it in the back of my mind. Within 3 weeks, I got 2 other calls, one from a company on the West Coast, one company on the East Coast, that were interested in sitting down, looking at a possible merger or acquisition. So I've been a faithful man all my life. And I'm like, how many signals is the guy going to send me before you go pay attention, Gary? Right. So I talked to my son, says, what do you want to do? Because this is your company, it's being built for you. Do you want to entertain this? And he said, well, yeah, let's entertain it. See, if we can make something more or if it's even viable. So we put together what I called a dream team of an M&A broker out of California, M&A accountant out of Florida, M&A attorney out of DC, M&A psychologist to help me get my head together, which still ain't together.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, and just a bunch of really stout people in the industry that deal with home building companies that have sold. So we put together a pro forma and got all of our books lined up and got all the skeletons out of the closet, made sure that we had a really clean set of books, and said, great. So now we've got things set up for the next 5 years. Because at that point, I would have made an exit at 65. My son would have exited at 40, and it was a good time for us to go ahead and do something else. And once we got everything set up, the M&A broker said, does it have to be 5 years? And I said, well, not really, but why do you ask? And he said, public home building companies, as we came through COVID, put all their development and acquisition on hold, and now they're starving, and they're willing to pay good multiples. So they said, "Is it okay if we float it out there with some NDAs?" So we floated it out there, and in 30 days, ushered 12 different companies through town, and ended up with 9 LOIs.
Wow.
So then we started negotiating LOIs, and the LOI to Century was signed beginning of December of 23, and we closed it January 22nd of 24.
Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
I know you can't talk about the financial details there, but I'm sure it was a really good exit.
You know what? The one thing I did learn when we go back to that seminar in the year 2000 was that a home building company is worth nothing except for the dirt they have, because that's all somebody's willing to buy. There's only one company that has ever sold for its operations, and that company was out of Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, by the name of Wayne Homes.
Sure.
And Mr. Wayne built an on-your-lot business. And this is, my goodness, he sold to Syntex back in the 90s. At that point, Mr. Wayne was closing like 350 homes.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have any computers. He had a room that was kind of his war room that his trim carpenter built for him with shoe boxes, believe it or not. Every single house that they started was started with a shoebox with 3x5 cards.
Wow.
The thing was, it didn't matter of how he did it. He just had a system. So he could take the system, and then when the world became computerized, turn it into, right? So Syntex bought him for the systems, and in 5 years, they gave it back to him and said, "This is nuts. We can't do this."
The shoebox building company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so every other home builder that's ever been bought has been bought for their land position. So that's why, we started this as a builder developer and realized that in order to grow, we had to keep lots in front of us. So we kept developing, and we amassed enough land that we owned that was already approved for a little north of 1,000 lots. So that's what made us attractive.
I was going to ask you, what do you believe now with all the experience you have makes a building company really sellable? So it's primarily the development aspect.
It is.
Of really having a landowner.
So the thing is, for somebody to tell me their plans are better, I say poo-poo, because there's plenty of good architects out there. For somebody that says, I have the best staff, well, you know what? If you close down, your staff's going someplace else for. So they're going to work for the next guy, right?
The loyalty is not really there anymore, right?
No, not at all. The other thing is to say, I've got really good relationships in my suppliers. Well, if you're building 100 homes a year and D.R. Horton's closing, 92,000, their purchasing is going to be better than yours. So, if you say, yeah, my systems are phenomenal, well, you're not going to match the systems of D.R. Horton, NVR, Pulte, Lennar, So the only thing you have is dirt. And dirt is real estate, which is always local. So if you can get into that little bit of a niche in the development part, you've got a sellable product.
So the development side is very important, knowing really, obviously, so the entitlement side.
The thing you mentioned earlier about what would you do to go into this business, I really think with everything in life, you got to go into it with the end game in mind. What's number one, why are you doing this? And what's the final result? What are you trying to achieve? And if you go into it saying, I want to build something to sell, in this business, you need dirt. That's where your sale is.
We had a lot of offline discussion on.
Yes, we did. Absolutely.
On really building businesses and what it takes to sell. So I have a lot more questions on that, also from the development side.
Sure.
Now, if I got this correctly, Century Communities kept you on to source lots. What does that responsibility mean to you now, and how is it different from being being fully in charge of running a massive operation?
Oh, I don't like it. As stated earlier, I've been self-employed my whole life. I've only worked as an employee for 2 different companies. I realized I wasn't a good employee. Most of the people I worked with realized I wasn't a good employee. I constantly have a improvement mind. No matter how good any of us are, we can always be just a little better. The fact that you won 5 gold medals doesn't mean you're going to get a 6th. And as soon as you get 5, everybody wants to kick you off the top. They're gunning for you. So you better be on your game and working hard and improving all the time. The sale was great. Century is a phenomenal company to work with. The 2 brothers that started the company actually built it up and sold it to D.R. Horton back, right before the recession in 2008. Mm-hmm. And then they had non-compete. They went back to work for Horton, learned a lot, they said, from Mr. Don Horton. And then when their non-compete was up, they went back into business, and then they took it public. A lot of the company culture still runs like a privately held family company. So they're great to deal with. They're great to work with. It's just tough that, I would put developments on the ground as I needed them. So I would put, I would take on the risk when the company needed the risk. Now I just got to put the lots on the ground. It's good because I've got an end user. Mm-hmm. But the development world, and you've shared some of this, and we've shared this together, the building business is very busy. There's a lot going on. It functions every day. There's something new every day. The development business is like watching paint dry on a wall. Between the approvals, when I first got in this business in the 90s, I could buy a piece of dirt, get it rezoned, get it entitled, and be scraping it to build houses in 12 months. Now it's almost a 5-month turn. And there's all kinds of hiccups in a way that it didn't used to be there because of new regulations and all. So, while I was building and developing, I didn't realize how slow the development business was because I was busy building things. Mm-hmm. And the developments were just kind of in the background. Now that the building business is gone and all I'm doing is developing, it's like sitting, like I said, watching paint dry. And I'm an extremely antsy person. I don't like sitting still. So it's been a little difficult. It's been a little bit of a learning curve. And at 63, I'm not done yet. I've still got stuff to do.
And you have time to now do this and share your experience.
Yeah.
Which I'm so grateful for.
My pleasure.
So you already shed a little bit light to the difference between the building side and the development side. So how do you view this differently in terms of, do you believe that in today's times, especially with the stats you shared of national home builders really more and more taking over, do you believe that developers now should have the building side in-house? Do you view the development side as something that, you would rather have really separate, now you kind of running the acquisition there for Century Communities? How do you look at really on one end, the building side, and then on the other end, the development portion of the business?
I think we're just at the starting point of that transition of the industry resetting itself. I still think there's an opportunity and a place for a small local builder, but it's not going to be in the consumer building. Mm-hmm. You want to open up a hamburger joint, you're not going to compete with McDonald's. Don't even try. But if you want to go to a high end, like a Jack Brown's or Fuddruckers, you can exist because you're going to produce something that they don't, and they can't, and they don't want to. So I think there's an opportunity there. I think there's an opportunity to, it's the old adage, if you can't beat them, join them. Mm-hmm. The public companies still need to buy dirt. So if you can find dirt and get it entitled, they'll buy it from you. So there's an opportunity there. I think there's going to be a real opportunity in the future with how our housing changes. Mm-hmm. The old ways of everybody needs, 5 acres and a 4,000-foot house, that's really gone away. at least from what I've seen with the consumer. The millennial crowd, the young crowd, from what I've witnessed and in the sales, they don't want a large home. They want a well-apportioned home that's going to function well for them. They don't need 4 bedrooms. They need what they need. They also don't want to be married to managing and maintaining that house every weekend like dad and grandpa did, right? They're busy. They're traveling. They've got a social schedule. If they're a young family, their kids are in 17 different sports, right? So they're on the go all the time. So they're looking for a smaller product that's more manageable. Also looking for, the HPRs, horizontal property regimes. They're looking for associations to where somebody's cutting the grass, somebody's maintaining the roads. They don't have to do that. And they're willing to pay a little bit for it. And then we also see the move down crowd that had the 4,000-foot house on 5 acres, raising their 4 kids. They don't want that anymore either, because now they've got a lifestyle where they're traveling. They're having some fun. They're socializing. They're going on extended vacations. They may have multiple houses. The only people that are struggling with it are the planning commissions and councils, because for some reason, density became a 4-letter word. And I think the municipalities, Davidson County has embraced that within reason. But the outer laying counties, Sumner County, Wilson County, Williamson County, Rutherford County, haven't embraced it yet. And, the one comment I heard from a gal in one of the municipalities in Rutherford said to me she was really disappointed the way we were going to develop a project, because we were going to do townhouses. And then the rest of the council, planning commission said absolutely not. So we did single family detached. And she was very upset. And I said, okay, you're kind of an anomaly. Most people will poo-poo density. Why do you want it? She said, for this reason. My 2 kids are at school at MTSU. When they graduate, they can't live here. They will not be able to afford to live here. And she said, they're not coming back to live with me. So she said, they're going to have to move outside. And so I think that'll start to be embraced. The other thing that I'm seeing that I really think is going to happen, and I understand, I've got a good friend that's in the truss and panel business with 84 Lumber. And I was picking his brain the other day, and when I asked him questions, he just kind of smiled, and I realized he couldn't tell me what he knew. But I said, are you working with any of the public companies on not only panelizing and trussing, but going back to modular housing? And he said, let me just tell you that there's companies doing it that are attempting it. So back in the early 90s, when I was still working for the company out of Houston, there was a company that moved here from Utah. They built a plant in Gallatin doing modular homes. I went to go look at their product. I was absolutely amazed. This was in the 90s. I was amazed. The only thing different than they were doing then than they would do today is today it would be all robotic, to where they had templates and they had jigs, but they had people actually operating nail guns. That wouldn't happen anymore. But looking at the product that could be built in a building under roof, away from the elements, building a 3,000-foot home in a matter of 14 days.
Time frame is.
And it not only can be done, it's being done. And, the homes were well built. They put beautiful elevations on them. And I think our future is going to head in that direction. So I think our industry has a lot more disruptors coming our way. When you got people that are willing to take a chance and do things differently, that have some cash, like Jeff Bezos, like Elon Musk. These guys are all about innovation, and they're all good with changing industries for the future, for the better. I think we're going to see some cool stuff in the next 10 years. But guess what? All those houses got to go on a piece of dirt somewhere.
I was going to say, so the biggest opportunities, just to kind of like recap, because I think that was really important what you said, is for anybody that's looking to develop, really essentially finding dirt that potentially large home builders have an interest in really understanding their buy box, then focusing on urban infill that in terms of like townhomes, possibly even luxury, that Trex builders don't want to do or don't take on.
Correct.
right? And then kind of lastly, like on the building side, how can you innovate in building? How can you be more unique? For example, whether it's the use of a modular, a prefab, or do you believe, and this is more like the next question here too, do you believe that 3D printing is going to be a thing? And that actually further revolutionizes the way we build and live?
I think the 3D printing is going to take a little bit of time. I saw a 3D printing concrete machine 2 years ago in Las Vegas, to where they were literally building a house and pouring the house solid concrete. It's innovative. The thing that's going to be tough to do it on a production level is the cost right now is very prohibitive.
Yeah.
To do it that way. So until that gets, so if you've got that versus we can build a modular in a factory
right
out of lumber with robots. And we can have that house done just as quickly as you can do the 3D concrete printed house. And we can put it out there for half the price. You know, so do I think there's a future? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot of horsepower with a lot of cash to make it work.
Absolutely. I think the first 3D printed house was actually in Germany, I think 5 years ago.
Okay.
I just like had looked into it a little bit, and I think isn't it Lennar that is trying to do 100-unit community? I think it is. It's a logistic problem that you're solving for in order to like sort of move essentially the.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that I seen the display in Vegas being done was that the machines are very big. The machines are very heavy. The machines are very costly. But if you park that machine on a piece of property with 100 homes, now literally you're just going from lot to lot to lot to lot. And now all the logistical overhead goes away. And now you can bring your costs down. And of course, you would put actually a batch concrete plant on property and vertically integrate. So at that point, you could probably get to a point that you're starting to get the raw cost down. But yeah, I think we got some really cool stuff coming our way, and old people like me either need to pay attention or get out of the way.
So you talked earlier about wearing different hats. So how do you think differently when you're wearing your builder hat versus your developer hat, other than patience?
Yeah, sure. Realizing the audience I'm playing to. So when I'm wearing the builder hat, I've got to dial myself back into being a human being, being a family man, being a husband, being a father, because I would explain to my staff all the time, we're building a product, we're building widgets. The customer's not buying a widget, the customer's buying a lifestyle. They're buying security. They are buying a place for their family to grow up. So when you're wearing the builder hat, I believe if you don't have that end user in mind, you're probably going to suffer a little bit, because it doesn't matter what you want to build. It's what they want to buy that's important. In the development world, you're dealing with corporations, right? So it's the old B2B and B2C, you know, are you selling to the consumer? Are you selling to a business? And in the development world, you got to put a different hat on, even though it's still a sale. It's all about money, and it's all about location, and it's all about turn. The objectives are very different than a family buying a house. So that's where the main hat has to change, is realizing you're no longer selling to the consumer. You're selling to, most of the time, a very sophisticated corporate buyer.
How do you view that when you look at Nashville urban infill? Like really 10, 15 minutes around the downtown core?
If you're going to develop things, Nashville's been kind of an anomaly, which is both good and bad. It's grown to a large city, but it's still a little town. And I don't know when that'll change or if that'll change, but it's a little town. So because there were so many people moving here, as there still are, there were a lot of people that got into the development and building business that, in my opinion, had no business being there because the barrier to entry was just so skinny. Anybody could get in it. I think that has been drying up, and I think it will continue to dry up to where people in the business will actually be people that have earned a right to be in the business and know what they're doing. I see a lot of it also with the financial institutions, that free money that was out there and anybody could do it. And of course, your interest rates were sub 3 and it was like anybody could do this. And because of our growth, you could raise that top line every day. In fact, you could raise the top line by the hour. And so no matter if you didn't know what you were doing and you were losing your butt, you could raise the top line enough that it would still be extremely profitable. I don't think those days are here right now. Will they come back? Yeah, everything cycles. But I think we're going through a cycle of you have to know what you're doing and do it correctly to stay alive. And unless you want to put in a bunch of your own cash and or get private investors, if you're going to go through lending institutions, you're going to have to prove that you know what you're doing. So I think there's going to be a little change in that mindset here in Nashville, but I still think there's phenomenal opportunity. It's just going to take people that are professionals in the business to do it.
Based on what you just shared, do you believe that there's a benefit to having really that deep building knowledge now, like as a developer, developing in the urban core or infill in order to stay competitive? Absolutely.
Because the competition is ramping up, and you need to really know what you're doing. Number one, you need to have a decent network, which all comes through years of developing and years of doing the right thing. I mean, you don't have to be around for 30 years. You just got to do the right thing. If you're around for 30 years doing the wrong thing and somebody's around for 5 years doing the right thing, they still trump you, or they will down the road. You've got to know what you're doing as far as zoning, as far as planning, to understand what you can get past. I've done plenty of deals that I've worked on forever and they never worked out, realized how much time and effort I wasted. And so thinking things through and understanding more about the business and the zoning in that area and knowing the council person in that area and knowing what the planning departments have master zoned it for, so to speak, gives you a head up on getting the job done. So I think in the future, it's just going to take professionals that are doing this as a profession, not as just an investor, can do very well. But they need to go ahead and understand that their due diligence on the front end has got to be solid.
I think it's really important to be part of a community or have the network to then be able to reach out, ask questions, double check things to make sure on the front end you're set up right and well.
I agree. Moving forward, what I think is going to be so important is networking and realizing that none of us are an island.
Yeah.
The building industry is very, very, very fractioned, especially before the publics, because we in the home building industry generated such a large part of the GDP, but we were very disconnected. And there's no two builders that do things the same way. And so a lot of builders that I realized in my 30-year career wouldn't talk to each other, wouldn't share, I think collaboration is going to be the key for the future. It's the old adage that when, the water goes up, all the boats rise.
Yeah.
Unless there's a hole in your boat and you're going to sink. So, too bad, so sad. But, we're all going to prosper together. And the more that we can collaborate and help each other, the better off we're all going to be.
I agree with that. Now, you've seen Nashville grow into one of America's hottest real estate markets. Did you ever feel the market pressure that comes with that from other massive companies coming in? How has that pressure sharpened your discipline versus tested it? How did you feel through that growth of Nashville and the surrounding areas?
I always believe that in order to survive, you got to shuck and jive. I mean, there's no straight path. And it's no different, if you're in business, if you're on a sports team, what have you. if you're a one-trick pony, you're not going to last.
Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, I really embraced, to be honest with you, the larger companies of Publix coming in here because it takes a lot of capital to change a market.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. When I first came here, there were a handful of companies that moved here from Texas and Oklahoma because the oil boom that was in Texas and Oklahoma all dried up. So those companies had to find a new home. So a lot of them moved to Nashville. And in Oklahoma and most of Texas, it's pretty flat. So they were all slab on grade builders. Everybody here in Nashville said, you'll never make it. You're going to die on a vine. This is a crawl space town. You can't do a slab. And their attitude was, no, that's what we do. And they simply did it. And they changed the market. So then after the downturn back in the late 80s or early 90s started coming back out, and you had companies coming to town like Centex and D.R. Horton and Pulte, they had enough staying power and enough capital behind them that they could lose money for a few years and really didn't matter. It was part of their pro forma.
Yeah.
And they proved that, oh my God, a slab on grade is actually a better product, especially with here in Middle Tennessee, where we have so much rock and so much clay, and the soils are non-absorptive. If the water doesn't come up outside, guess where it comes up? In your crawl space. So having a slab on grade is actually a better foundation as long as the topography allows for it.
Interesting. So that kind of speaks to somewhat the community / collaboration of really learning from each other.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
In order to grow and be better overall.
Yes.
Also then how a city is built. And so you've seemed to more so thrive in it and kind of utilize that to also further grow. And
sure. Absolutely. I'm the world's growing every day and the world's moving every day. So, when somebody would say, well, I'm not interested in growing by 10% every year, I said, well, then you're going backwards because the world's growing. For you just to stay even the way you are today, you're going to have to grow every year, if you like it or not, just to stay even. Because as soon as you stand still, you're actually going backwards. So every time I'd see a new company come to town, a new product being advertised or sold, it always intrigued me because it's got to change, and the rest of the world is going to change.
Yeah.
You can either get on board or be left behind. So, I embrace the change that's happening in Nashville. I embrace the changes that I still see happening in Nashville. I think it's phenomenal because it gets us, it not only gets us moving, it keeps us moving. So if Nashville were the old stodgy brick town it always was, you wouldn't see all these people moving here. You wouldn't see all these companies moving here. These people that are moving in from California, from New York, from other countries, from Colorado, down from Chicago, they've already seen some of these products and that's what they want.
Yeah.
So we've got to offer them and we've got to be acceptable to delivering them. Otherwise, we're going to find some other place to go.
It's along the lines of if you don't grow, you die.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So since your sale, how do you feel today about 18 months after?
I'm getting there. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. It was interesting. I went to a meeting with the EO organization the other night. I was at a fellow's house, and it was 10 of us that have sold their business or are in transition of selling their business.
I would have loved to be a fly on that wall.
Maybe, maybe not. There were a lot of sad stories there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind sharing a little bit the perspective of that? And
I can.
Process, in terms of
sure. So
just from what is it? I would imagine it's probably tough to process when you've built and poured your everything into something for 30 plus years.
Yes.
And then pretty much from one day to another, it's pretty much gone.
Yeah. So the thing that's tough is, and that's one reason to join the EO organization is you're around other people that get it.
Yeah.
If you've never been an entrepreneur, you've never built something, you've never gone through the struggles and headaches and tough times of owning a business, you don't understand. So when I'll talk to folks, in fact, next weekend I'm going back to Buffalo for a friend's wedding. And a lot of the folks I talk to, family and friends back there, don't get it simply because they were born into a blue collar world that they're still in, which is not a slam. It's just where they are. And they look at me and say, when are you going to stop being a workaholic? And I said, I never looked at it that way because I really love what I do. Yeah, there have been tough times, but I've never woken up once and said, oh my God, why am I doing this? Or I hate doing this. When I talk to some of them, it's so sad because they said, I worked so-and-so, or I did this for 30 years and I hate it every day. Thank God I retired. My question is, why'd you do it?
For 30 years.
For 30 years. Oh my God. Yeah. And you were miserable for 30 years. Now you're old and miserable. You're never going to change. That's terrible.
So that's ownership, right?
Yeah.
So as a business owner, you're 100% responsible for owning whatever decision you make, whatever it is you do or commit to keep doing.
Yeah,
if you are a W-2,
correct.
You actually have the pro of you're able to leave if you don't want to. But in the previous generations, there seems to have been also that.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying we're all wired differently. Mm-hmm. And if you can go to quote unquote your job every day and enjoy it, is it really work?
Right.
But here's what I didn't realize is I never thought of myself as a workaholic. I just thought of myself as somebody that really enjoyed what they did. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, it produces my income, right? So double whammy, pretty good. But I realized for 38 years, I had a mistress. I loved what I did. I loved being around the people that I worked with. I loved being on job sites. I loved watching a bulldozer take something. I mean, I loved all that. I was like a kid, just enjoying having fun out there. And when all of a sudden one day it was all gone, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just a different thing. Mm. It's like somebody that's married forever and they get divorced or their spouse passes. They still have a life. There's still other things to do. But there's this hole that you got to try to fill. So after 18 months, the hole's starting to get filled. And from the meeting I said that I went to with some of the other entrepreneurs, the one gal was saying, that she went into a serious depression for about 2.5 years. And she said it was, time just had to heal and had to realize that, okay, that was yesterday. That wasn't me. That was a business. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
But, you get so ingrained, especially when you love what you do. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of selling a business. Now, I know plenty of people that after they sold their first business have bought or started other businesses. But what they did differently is they bought that business with the end in mind that they were going to sell it. Mm-hmm. So they simply took this, made it better, and sold it. Their heart wasn't in it. Their mind and their finances were in it, but not their heart because they ran it differently. Mm-hmm. And when you're starting and bootstrapping a business, your heart's in it.
Yeah.
And, you give a piece of your heart away.
It sounds like it's a lot reconfiguring your identity.
Oh, absolutely. The business wasn't my only identity, but it was a big part of it. I'm not really sad that the phone doesn't ring. I'm not really sad that I'm not thought of as, he owns Landmark. But you realize, it was part of your identity. People knew you for that. Mm-hmm. People respected you for that. And, they've also respected you for other things. So it's not completely gone.
Yeah.
But it once again, it is a big part that, you got to move on and plug it with something new.
If you had 5 minutes with Gary in 1991, say, what would you challenge him to believe about himself or this journey?
I would challenge him to believe that he can go anywhere, do anything, and rise to any level that he wants to, as long as his heart's in it, and as long as he realizes that it's not going to be an easy road, but it is going to be a great road.
That's beautifully said. So what's next for you?
Time will tell. So in the short term, I still have a contract to fulfill with Century. That relationship could easily continue because we both enjoy the relationship. I want to do some other things. I still want to stay in the industry because I really like the industry. But I want to do the projects I want to do. So when you're building a company, when you're doing something and you've got overhead and cash flow and things to do, at times you'll do C projects because it churns cash flow.
Mhm.
I don't have to ever do a C project again. I can just cherry pick the A projects that I want to do that are going to make the money I want it to make and present the outcome that I want, because I don't have to do this. I choose to do this.
Mm.
So I don't know what the new next is, because really it's a wide open slate. The world's my oyster, so to speak.
Mm.
The other thing I'm really enjoying doing is, at this point, I'm mentoring 4 different people. Some people in this industry, some not. That has been just an absolute hoot. I mean, I'm almost loving this more than the building industry, because I see people that I'm willing to share experiences with.
Mm.
I'm willing to actually see the beyond the smoke, and you can see the trees through the forest that they're not seeing because they're in that churning the C projects, and you're able to look through it with them and help them possibly avoid some mistakes that you've made, learn off of your dime, so to speak. And just watching some really, really brilliant young folks go to another level. It's a lot of fun.
I appreciate that you also take the time to really give back from like all the lessons you've learned, because I mean, I just know, 30 plus years in this business, you've learned a wealth of knowledge and gone through fire in a lot of different ways, and also different market cycles,
Sure.
which I think, is currently obviously a big topic too, overall. And you've seen a city and the greater Nashville, the greater area being built up. And I think we're still fairly early. So yeah,
those parts, some of that does come back down to luck. So I didn't pick Nashville to move to because I saw it turning out like it was going to in 2025. So I moved to a place that I thought would do well, that seemed to be okay, that my wife would be closer to her family. And by the way, Nashville grew while I was here.
Mhm.
So those parts were luck. But it was funny, at that meeting the other evening, I was talking with a gal, and she was talking about people, family and friends that have told her how lucky she is. And I said, what was always interesting to me is the people that work the hardest, study the most, take the most beatings, and fall down the most but keep getting up, always seem to be the luckiest people too. How does that figure? So I'll take luck where I can get it.
Gary, last question. So if
Sure.
someone really resonates with you and your story, where can they go to connect with you?
Oh, let's see. So the new website is garyw@craftedtn.com. They're welcome to email me at any time. We still keep an office in Mount Juliet on Central Pike. They're welcome to stop by anytime. I'm still involved with the National Association of Homebuilders. I'm here. I'd love to do a project with somebody. I'd like to look at a project. I'd be happy to vet the project with them and for them, and just basically stay involved. I think if we all network enough, luck seems to come your way, because people are going to pitch you projects, and people are going to pitch you things to do. People are asking it. They're going to ask for help.
Yeah.
Some gratis, and some will pay you for it. But it seems that the more I try to help other people, the more things keep coming my way. So it always pays off in spades.
Awesome. I'm excited to also have you come to the community at some point here soon. Well,
Yes,
talk more about that.
I'd love to.
Well, thank you for, sitting down with me,
My pleasure.
going through all my questions.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
It was great to see you again.
If you want to build an empire like Gary has, and you're ready to take action, check out the free roadmap down below. And if you already know you're ready to go deeper, message us on Instagram. We'd love to help you on this journey. And if you got a lot out of this video, please like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this.